Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, Glenn Jacobs.
Hey, good afternoon. Just a little bit about myself. I actually grew up near Hannibal, Missouri. I graduated from Truman State University. It's 2.5 hours south of Keokuk. Stepped off the airplane yesterday. I was like, oh, it's still balmy here in January. Isn't it amazing? Thank you all so much for being here today. I've had the good fortune of meeting a number of the candidates running for president of the United States. And I like some of them. They're good people. A couple of them I really, really like. I think they have great policies. But they're not what our country needs right now. They're not who our country needs right now. Our country right now needs Donald J. Trump. And for me, it comes down to two things. You know, Trump's economic policies were amazing. The economy boomed. The border was under control. It's now in crisis. And we see all the other great things that he did. But for me, there are two things specifically that I believe he will do better than anyone else. In late August 2021, I got a text that I will never forget. A friend of mine sends me a text and is like, hey, just a heads up, in case you haven't heard. One of the 13 service members that was killed in the withdrawal from Afghanistan was from Knox County. You know, as a local official, you never think you'd have to deal with something like that. And as I've thought more about it, that was a microcosm of the Biden administration. He took some excellent work that Trump had done and completely botched it, and resulted in the deaths of 13 fine young American men and women. You know, often government incompetence is hidden in reports and statistics and numbers. It's something completely different when you see it in a flag-draped coffin, a shattered family, and a community in mourning. When Trump was president, there was peace in the Middle East. The Abraham Accords. Does anyone know what would have happened if Donald Trump had been president? And now it looks like the world is teetering on the brink of a regional war in the Middle East, which could end up in a world war. Donald Trump is the one person that would stop that from happening and reverse it from happening. And American boys and girls should never be sacrificed on the altar of profit for the military-industrial complex. But it sure seems like that's what happens sometimes. And the other reason that Donald Trump is far superior to anyone else in this race is he has personally stood up to the deep state like no one ever has. For those of you who don't know, I've had a long career in professional wrestling and WWE. A lot of people think I'm a tough guy. I like to think I'm a tough guy myself. But if I'd been what he'd been through, been indicted multiple times, I probably would have been like, you know, Mar-a-Lago's really nice this time of year. I think I'll just retire there. Instead, he fought back and he exposed the weaponization of the Department of Justice like no one ever has. And I can't wait till he's back in the White House and he starts ripping all that out by the roots. So again, thank you all so very much for being here. It's cold, it's terrible outside. It shows you the support that he has. Tomorrow night, be safe when you go to the caucuses. Most of all, make sure you support Donald J. Trump for President of the United States. Thank you all so very much. God bless.
In return, Trump showered Kane with praise and also addressed The Undertaker, who was not in attendance, but praised his acting skills and physical strength.
And another man who's a friend of mine, he's another one I'm not going to mess around with. He's Knox County, Tennessee. Do you know Glenn Jacobs? Goes by the name of Kane. Kane. Where is Kane? Look at the size of this guy. Man, oh man. That's it. He's all man. He's all man. It's good. How many years have you been doing that? You've been Kane, one of the great characters, and how many? So how tall are you? You're 6 what? 6'8", and weigh what when you wrestle? About 3. Well, that's not bad. I'm not that far away. Ew. That's not good. You just ruined my day. 300. Well, all I know is, I guess there's a little acting involved, but when I see these guys, some of them like the Undertaker, right? And I see him, and he walks around the ring lifting a 300-pound guy over his shoulders like this. It may be acting, but there aren't too many. And then he throws him into the seats. It's pretty great. And he's done a fantastic job as mayor, Tennessee.
You know what you've done? You've made politics fun again.
Yeah.
And I just think some people get caught up in the fact that I think they look at politics now kind of like a wrestling story, and they can't separate reality.
Well, it's so interesting because, and I can't explain exactly why, but so we'll go to places and have 100,000 people show up, and I don't have a card, and I'm not a wrestler. And when I felt your arm, I said I wouldn't have been a very good wrestler. It wouldn't. You get big, strong arms on top of everything else. But and I'll get a crowd of 100,000 people coming about politics. If Ronald Reagan came back and he went to some of the places that I go to, he'd have 250 people or 304, and that's very, very good. And they do it in a ballroom someplace, and I'm getting like 50, 60, 100,000 people. It's crazy. And it's like a love of the country because, it's hope. It's something going on. It's something very amazing. So now we're in the middle of the election period. I mean, it's actually started. The voting actually started after 4 years. Because if I didn't feel I won by a lot the last election, I wouldn't do that. Because if you lost, you lost. It's okay, you lose. It's easier in a way to just say, okay, I'm getting on with my life, and maybe I'll go to those beaches or do what I want to do.
There's golf to be played.
Yeah, golf too. Do you play golf?
I'm a frustrated golfer.
I would think you would hit a long ball if you hit it.
When I hit it, it goes a long way.
Yeah,
I'm just not the...
Now, with just 8 days to go before Election Day, you have a new CBS News YouGov survey finding that there is a tie across the composite battleground states collectively, while Harris maintains a 1-point lead in a national vote preference. Joining me now to break it all down, the Republican mayor of Knox County, Tennessee, and 2021 WWE Hall of Fame inductee, Glenn Jacobs, better known to all of my wrestling fans out there as Kane. Mayor, it's great to have you. Thank you for joining the program. What do you make of how tight some of the polling has been, particularly within battleground states?
I think that's just how this race is going to shake out. We saw the same thing in 2016, 2020. Back then, of course, it was going to be a landslide for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Didn't quite turn out that way. So I think that with polling, there's always the challenge of just what particular time and what issues, what questions are asked, and all of those things. But nevertheless, I think that we're seeing a lot of momentum in the Trump camp, and I think that the Harris camp is actually panicked about that at this point.
Shouldn't he be further ahead given the issues that are on the ballot, like economy, inflation, immigration?
Well, sure. Again, when you look at 2016, he was well behind Hillary Clinton. In fact, many pundits were saying that was going to be a landslide, and it wasn't. And this time he's actually closed the gap since then. So I think come Election Day, I don't think Trump ever polls really well. I think the most important in the final poll is Election Day, and I think he's going to do very well in that one.
We were talking about his rally last night in Madison Square Garden. Elon Musk was speaking about cutting about $2 trillion from a $6.5 trillion bloated government, as many people would say. But do you think that that's realistic? Could someone really come in as a government efficiency officer and cut $2 trillion?
Something's going to happen. We're on a completely unsustainable path here with spending. When we we look at the debt, when we look at the amount of money the federal government spends, its budget compared to GDP, all of that is completely out of whack. So something has to be done. It would be politically painful, but if it isn't done now, it's going to be much more painful in the future. So that would be something that I would definitely like to see, would be to see the federal government really pared back.
What issue is top of mind for your constituents?
For us, inflation in the economy, immigration, public safety, all the things that folks think about when you talk about government. You know, politics actually isn't that hard. People want good roads, they want safe neighborhoods, and they want good schools. And what we're seeing under the Biden-Harris administration is the complete opposite of that. That's why literally Vice President Harris has created a straw man to where she's running against her own record and saying, I'm not going to do those things when I get into office, but that's exactly what she's doing right now.
I have to give you a little bit of a jab here. I'm a former UFC fan. I do love wrestling, but, I think when people see Trump go to UFC fights, that's very clear that that's his audience. Within your world of wrestling and WWE, is there room for swing voters in that camp?
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, I don't think any audience is monolithic. So I do think that you see people that have different viewpoints, and I have some colleagues who are friends of mine that believe things that are vastly different from what I believe, but we still get along as best as we can. And that's one of the unfortunate things about the political environment now and how it's so divisive, is the fact that you can't even talk with anyone anymore, just about the issues, frankly, about anything. And it'd be great if we could get back to the point where we could have those heated discussions, but at the end of the day, realize that we're all trying to work towards a common goal, which is improving our country.
A common goal from the Republicans has also been improving the messaging around early voting. How is early voting going in your district?
The numbers are huge. In Tennessee, we have a 2-week period of early voting, and this time the numbers have been through the roof, as they have around the country.
Well, I guess you can't really have any results yet, but you have an idea of how many people have voted versus Election Day. Is it higher than it was 4 years ago?
Yes, it will be much higher than it was. I don't know the exact figure, but it will be much higher.
You've talked about some of the issues, and people have really mentioned spending. I think for me, I think about managing the budget of a family, of a young daughter. I think about that every time I go to the grocery store. People sort of get their eyes glazed over when we talk about federal debt, because it's like the government can just print trillions and it doesn't matter. But it matters to my family. If I'm required to budget in my family, I need a federal government that too takes that same fiscal responsibility and manages their budget. Are you confident that the next administration can get our fiscal house in order?
Yes, I am, especially as you mentioned with Elon coming in and some other folks that President Trump has talked about bringing in as advisors or his cabinet. I think so. And one thing that folks have to remember, we all get that glazed over look when we start talking about finance, but the reason the national debt is so important is, they can print money to make up for the budget, but it still goes into a tax. It's called inflation. And the reason that bread and milk and gasoline are all so much more expensive is because the federal government has printed so much money to buttress its outrageous spending habits. So again, we're going to have to do something. I think this Trump administration, it's going to be pretty different from the first one. I think that the administrative state, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, I think this time that they are in deep trouble, that Donald Trump is going to take care of that. A lot of these bureaucrats that have lifetime jobs will be shown the door, and that's nothing but good news to the American people.
Well, I'm glad that at least two of us, you and me, our eyes don't glaze over when we talk about federal debt and deficit. So I guess we get 2 points right there. I wanted to end on a topic we were just coming off from a previous conversation about building nuclear sites to power AI. We know that solar and wind is great, but it doesn't reliably power AI and the desperate, power needs that we need in the future. For your county, in your state of Tennessee, what are you guys doing to invest in nuclear and make sure that you can be an AI hub for businesses?
Well, here in Tennessee, in East Tennessee, we have a huge advantage. We have the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which was part of the Manhattan Project. And then, of course, the offspring of that was nuclear power. The first light bulb lit using nuclear power using electricity generated from a nuclear power plant was right in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is about 30 miles down the road. And since then, they've just kept up that great research pedigree that they've had since the 1940s. We just had a major announcement that a company called Orano will be investing $6 billion close to the lab to build the country's first uranium enrichment facility in over 20 years. So here in Tennessee, we believe that we can help lead the nuclear renaissance across the country, across the world, really. And as you said, that's what has to happen. Nuclear is the only energy source that's going to be able to accommodate the electricity needs of the future.
Well, Mayor Glenn Jacobs, we're really appreciative of your time and your expertise and giving us some insight into your county, your state, and of course, some of the viewership as we're coming up on Election Day as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Or what are you going to do if elected to protect the integrity of women in sports and continue on with just the fair play? And I don't mean to put you on the spot,
No,
and I appreciate
it's a
everything.
simple question to
well,
me.
but I want to put a face to it. If you can I bring my daughter?
Absolutely.
Okay, come here.
Wow, such a beautiful. That's what I call a beautiful daughter, huh?
Thank you. She is, and she's quite the quarterback too.
But you don't want to go and wrestle a guy like if you were doing that, because people do that, like your father, right? He's a little too much to handle, right? No, I will not. I will get rid of it fast. Men playing in women's sports is insane. Okay, it's insane. I mean, I assume I can't even imagine anybody thinking anything other. Like, you have to have borders, right? You have to have fair elections. Where are the people that want it? Have you ever met anybody that said, we want men playing in women's sports? You know, I've never met anybody. I know there's got to be some kind of a movement. I'm going to terminate that immediately. I'll terminate it. I'm not going to let it happen. Yesterday, a volleyball player got hit. Female team where somebody transitioned. And you don't think of volleyball. She got hit. Now, this was a man who transitioned to a woman, and they showed the shot. And it was all girls. There were girls. Older, like 18, 19, 20. Very good players, like All-American type players. I think a college team or something. And they had the one guy on the one team, and he was up so high in the air, and he smashed that ball. You don't see that. And this ball came at her at a speed that she's never seen. It really whacked her. But other volleyball players were hurt. But the best is weightlifting, where you see a record that stood for like 15 years, and they're putting, an eighth of an ounce on each side of the bar. You know this better. And then some person that transitioned to a female from a male, have you lifted before? Not much, no. Well, here we are. So he got, then they added like 100 pounds to it. He's still lifting. Yeah. So it's crazy. The swimmers too. Look at the swimmers. Yeah. I mean, the swimmers, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
So, and I think it's very demeaning to women. But, she wants to play sports and she wants to play against women. You don't necessarily want to play against men. It's okay, but you don't want to do it. Did you see the boxing match at the Olympic boxing? Did you see the guy?
I did.
Did you see that beautiful Italian girl? She's supposed to be a good boxer. She took just a left jab. The guy's up, he goes, boom. That's like a defensive punch. So it goes like that. I never saw it quite like that. She didn't actually go down. She walked back to her corner. She said, I just got hit harder than I've ever been hit before.
It was ridiculous.
The corner pushes her back out. You can do it, you can do it. But he goes with another left jab, and she walked off. She said, there's no way I can beat that. Now, there were two people in the Olympics, because I didn't even know they have female boxing. There were two people that transitioned into women. Both of them won the gold medal. Shockingly. Are you shocked to hear that?
Imagine that, right?
How would you like to play this guy? Okay, he decides to transition. I don't think we have to worry about it. Somehow, I don't think we have to worry about it. But this would not be pleasant. Anyway, it's been great being with you guys.